Hey guys, so there's a few things I want to talk about in this video. I'm going to be drawing on an experience I had a few weeks ago. I want to talk about how we frame situations, specifically when we're invited somewhere. For example, a friend or a family member might invite you out for a bite to eat, for a coffee, or in my case, a friend. It might be something more extravagant than that. A friend invited me to try out indoor rock climbing and indoor skiing. And it's something I've never done before. And when you live with somewhat of a shy bladder, you think a little more about these kind of things. If it involves travel, you might think, well, do I have to go on a train? How long will that be? Do I have to go on a plane? You know, all these kind of things come into play. So I want to talk about how do you deal with that kind of a situation? How do you frame it? Because what you do is based upon your perspective of it. We'll always move towards what we perceive to be pleasurable. We'll always move away from what we perceive to be painful. So I was invited to try out indoor rock climbing, and 3 years ago the same person wanted me to try indoor skydiving, and I went for it. I tried it out, and my pararesis spoiled the experience because I was in my skydiving suit and I'd attempted to pee and I wasn't able to, and I'm listening to the instructor and I felt a little bit foolish. There were other people watching me. So that was 3 years ago, and a lot's happened in those 3 years. And rather than backing out of the invitation, because I could have done that, I could have turned to my friend and said, indoor rock climbing, skiing, it's not really for me, can we just go for a coffee? I could have just thought, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm not the type of person to do indoor skiing. And that's what we do. We put areas of life out of bounds, and we treat fear as a stop sign. And when we do that, less is possible. And I'm aware of those things. And yes, there was some worry around what's going to happen. Is it going to be another situation where I'm in my skiing suit and I'm trying to listen to the instructor, I want to get it right, and I feel foolish and awkward? I'm bringing up, my mind's imagining that because of what happened in the past. So I noticed that I was worrying about it. What's going to happen? You know, there's that voice. What will happen? How will I deal with it? And I realised that I was trying to deal with something that may or may not happen, and I can't do that. I can only be here in the now, and I was conscious that things come into your life and the best way to deal with it is to flow with it. But moreover, I saw it as a great opportunity to see how far I'd come. It was a great opportunity to see how far I've come in those 3 years. So I was genuinely curious to see how would I deal with that situation, because I knew that if worse comes to the worst, I will just excuse myself from the situation. And so framing it in that way, I went into it with a different kind of energy. I said, yes, let's do it. And it helped just to change the way I was looking at it. So it became a great opportunity to learn about myself. And I knew that whatever happens at the end of it, growth will have occurred. So by doing that, it gave me an opportunity to compare where I am now to where I've come from. And when it comes to making comparisons, the only comparison you want to make is to compare where you are now to where you have come from. Don't compare yourself to other people. Because when you look around and you're comparing yourself to other people, you can find yourself lacking and you're wondering, why aren't I at that level? And you're looking around you and it appears as though everyone else is having a great time and you're not. Everyone else has got it under control and you haven't. Don't do that. Only compare yourself with how far you've come. And when I look back to where I was 3 years ago, I've come an awful long way. Take account of that. Take stock of how far you've come. If you're listening to this video, then you've already moved through a lot to get to the point where you're taking the time to watch these videos. So something else that has helped to change my energy and change how I frame these kind of situations involves how I view strangers. And that's very important, because another thing that we do is we have this sense of being the outsider. As everyone's out there, they've got their own lives, they're getting on with it, they're adequate to the challenges of life, and I'm not. These are the kind of things that we say to ourselves, and we look at other people as though they're outsiders. And something that really helped me is something I read from a Dalai Lama book, and it was interesting when I read it because I was sat in an airport at the time waiting to catch my first flight to the United States, and it was a 7.5 hour flight, and I didn't know what was going to happen because the last plane journey I took, I didn't want to face failure, and even though I needed the toilet, I wouldn't even attempt it. Now I knew that this time round I will go to the toilets whether I need to or not. So anyhow, I was sat in the airport and I'm by myself, other people are with the family, with friends, and I was conscious that I'm here by myself and I'm about to do this thing that I've never done before. I've never been on a 7.5 hour flight. So I thought, I may as well relax, took out my Dalai Lama book. I'd not really read any of it. My mum had bought me the book because she knew I was into meditation. So the first page in that book, the Dalai Lama talks about how he travels the world and he meets and looks upon other people as though they're his brother and sister. Because as human beings, we all share the same common goal. We all seek happiness and we don't want suffering. Wherever you go in the world, we all share that same inherent goal. And I read that and I put the book down and I just looked around and I played with the idea that, yeah, I'm not so different to these other people. And all of us, we're not really that different from each other in that we all seek happiness and we don't want to suffer. And that just helped. And this is something that needs to be fostered. It's all about our attitude. And that's just something that helped, and I wanted to share that with you. Be honest with yourself. It's important to develop that relationship where you're honest with yourself and you say, you know what, this is too fearful for me and I'm not really ready to face this right now. And at least if you're honest with yourself, eventually, and doing the graduated exposure work at the same time, starting at the level that you're at, by doing that, eventually it becomes harder not to do it. It becomes more painful to avoid than it does to move through the experience, even though you don't know how you're going to deal with it. So that was the case with me. it actually became more uncomfortable to turn to my friend and say, skiing's not really for me. It was actually easier just to, even though I don't know what's going to happen, don't know how I'm going to cope with it, it was easier to actually go with it. Because I knew that growth would occur. If I back down, it's just another area that's out of bounds. It's something I can't do in life. So now that I've done it, if only in a small way, life has opened up. You know, if I ever have children one day and they want to try out indoor skiing, it's something I can go into and I know a little bit about it. I've done it before. And I relate to myself as someone who does these things. And that's something that's important as well. And that reminds me of how I used to approach dating. Like, I used to think of myself as, you know, I'm not the type of guy that just walks up to a woman and says, you know, I thought you looked nice. Until I'd done it. And then it's really weird when you like break through that barrier and then you kind of have a new relationship with yourself and you think, well, actually, yeah, I'm a guy who walks up to a woman and says, yeah, I think you look really nice. It just all of a sudden becomes your new reality. And we're always evolving, we're always changing. If you never face challenges, if you're not willing to take a risk, you're just on this even keel. And it's pretty much a passionless life because you're not being challenged enough. It's actually our challenges that make life invigorating and worthwhile. And when we do that, it leaks into other areas of your life, your relationships, your love for other people and how you express that love. So just a few thoughts that have been playing around in my head. You know, when I make these videos and I upload it and I think, oh, I didn't say that and I didn't put it into this context. So, but hey, it's not about being perfect and getting things right, is it? This is a growing experience. So, progression, not perfection. Hope you got something from this. I'll catch you on the next video.